something must be going on. But I was like, I can't be going bald at 23. Like, surely that doesn't happen. And so it's sort of a few weeks down the line, it really set in, and I was like, shit, yeah, I'm going bald. I'm 100% going bald. As you say, it depends how severe the person's genetics are and how sensitive they are to androgens, and how predisposed they are to go bald. Because if you're a guy that is balding rapidly and you leave it 2 years, you could be in a much worse position than someone who isn't as sensitive. The hair follicles are going to last a bit longer. But from when you look on all these forums and everything, you can still see. But as you say, I think it's something that is massively overlooked. And also when you go into these arguments about allopregnanolone and finasteride blocking it, like all this, okay, fair enough, there might need to be more studies done on it, but
yeah,
all these people that argue about it at the moment, the studies are done on rats, and at the end of the day, I'm not a rat. Are you a rat? No.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the HairStacks podcast. Today, I have another guest, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
Hi guys, hi Kyle subscribers. This is it's Tom Gilbanks, and hope you're all doing well this fine Friday morning.
So, I guess the first question would be, at what age did you notice your hair loss?
So I started to notice it, Kyle, when I was 23, and I think definitely it had been going on insidiously in the background before that time, but I actually only started to notice it around then. And you see, I actually did a buzz cut when I was 22, and when I look back at the pictures now, I think, like, how on earth did I not notice that I was balding? Like, when I look back at these pictures, it's like it was pretty obvious. But I think, yeah, when I was 23, I properly started to notice it. So I always go back to the first moment where it really clicked for me. And I was on a training camp in France. I did like athletics at university, and there was this bathroom in the apartment that we were staying at. It was a pretty dark bathroom. Like in these apartments, they were kind of like log cabins up in the mountains. And when I went to the toilet in the nighttime, there was really, really bright light above the sink, and I looked in the mirror, and I could see like these large gaps straight through into my scalp, and I was like, can I always see that? Like, I swear I could never see through all the way to my scalp like that before. And I'll show you, I'll send you a picture as well of what that looked like, so you guys can see it on the video. But and I kind of just put it to the back of my mind for a little while, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just normal. Who knows? But then after that moment, I started to actually realize that I was losing tons of hair in the shower, on my pillow. And then when I'd actually sort of analyze the hairs and pick them up and like properly look at them, I could see how thin they were. And I've always had really dark brown hair, and they were so much lighter in pigment. Like some of them were almost translucent. And I was like, what? Like, something must be going on. But I was like, I can't be going bald at 23. Like, surely that doesn't happen. And so sort of a few weeks down the line, it really set in, and I was like, shit, yeah, I'm going bald. I'm 100% going bald. And I've got a lot of baldness on my dad's side of the family. Interestingly, pretty much no balding. Not even, like, most people on my mum's side of the family have a full head of hair into later life, but a lot of balding on my dad's side of the family. And then I was like, right, okay, need to do something about it. And I was like, right, I kind of looked at my face shape and how my face looks, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to suit a bald head. I really don't. Even with the buzz cut, when I look back at the buzz cut photos now, I don't think it really suited me super well. And so I looked into all the all the different treatments that people do when they first start trying to tackle the issue. And obviously the first things that pop up are, finasteride, minoxidil. And I looked into it and I saw all these dreadful things that people were talking about online. If you start taking finasteride, your dick's gonna stop working. You're gonna grow a pair of double D's. You're gonna all these dreadful things. Like, you're gonna be depressed, and I didn't want to take it because of that. I really didn't. So I started taking all the natural remedies, and just trying things like rosemary oil, and what else did I try? Biotin, stuff like that. Stuff that just doesn't work. And I was doing that for a couple of months, and I was still just losing a ton of hair. And so then I started to freak out, and I was like, right, what am I going to do about this? Because I can't lose my hair at this age. Like, it's too important to me. So then I spent. Am I still connected on the audio here, by the way? Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
Yes.
screen changed. And yeah, so I started to actually look into the research a bit more myself, because I see videos online and people were saying, there's the chance of getting side effects are so low that they're probably not going to happen. But I didn't want to just take, people making videos online as advice off the rip. So I started to really look into the research myself and actually go and read the studies, that's something I'd really recommend anyone going through this who's considering treatment should do. Like, actually go and research it yourself. Like, it's literally all online for free. There's no you don't have to be a doctor to understand it. I think some of the studies can be kind of worded funny, but once you actually you could literally look at the abstract of it and just kind of get the gist of what's going on. But yeah, when I actually really delved into the research, I pretty much just understood very quickly that, okay, I'm probably not going to get any side effects. And even if I did get some of these side effects, was it worth taking that risk? And maybe if I did get the side effects, even managing it so I could keep my hair. And the answer was yes, 100%. So I started on finasteride 0.5 milligrams, and I started with that 3 times a week because I was still pretty cautious and I didn't want to go straight in at the maximum dose because I was still cautious of side effects and I was still learning about all the science behind these treatments. And of course, I got no side effects. I was using minoxidil as well because my hairline was definitely going back quicker than the rest of my hair. So I decided I'm going to just use minoxidil on my hairline and leave the rest up to finasteride. And then if I need to, a little bit further down the line, I'll use minoxidil on the rest of my scalp. And yes, so I started taking it, had a massive shed around, I think it was about 2 months in. I was shedding a little bit up to 2 months. And then I think it hit the 2-month mark and I just lost tons of hair, like so much hair. And I'd pretty much wore a cap for a couple of months after that because it looked dreadful. And that is another thing that I'd recommend people do. Go and take pictures when it's at the worst, because I wish so badly that I'd taken more pictures when my hair was looking at that point when it was so sparse and thin, and I'd been through the worst of the shed. I wish I had more pictures of it compared to how it is now. And so I was thinking, okay, I think a lot of people, when they go through the shedding phase, they really start to panic. And it's not ideal. It's not a very pleasant time. But when I was going through the shed, I thought, like, this is great. It actually, like, something's working. Like, I'm losing all this hair, but it's going to come back, because obviously that's how the hair cycle works. And so even when my hair was looking as dreadful as it was, I was really just happy that I was doing something about it. And so I was just excited basically for the next, the following months. And it took, I think, around the 6-month mark is when I started to actually notice some cosmetic improvements. And then pretty much every single week from the 6-month mark, it just started coming back rapidly. Like, the growth was insane and I was just responding super well to it. And then the bit one thing that doing the research that I kind of understood was that I was very unlikely to get my hairline back to a reasonable degree. And so I thought, okay, if I could take the treatment and even just hang on to how it is at this point when I'm starting treatment, then I'll be happy with that. And then maybe a bit further down the line, I can get a hair transplant to make it look a bit better. But fortunately for me, which I haven't seen with a lot of people, my hairline really started to recover. Like there was, I could see these little wispy hairs starting to grow in, and they'd grow, but they'd shed really quickly. Then they'd come back over the course of the whole year, first year of taking treatment. And so then a year in, pretty much, my hairline had recovered dramatically, and the density was brilliant. I was, honest to God, I was so happy, Kyle. Like I was buzzing. And then that kind of, from that point, I'd say that was the peak of my results. And I then went through a second shedding phase. I think that was just after the year mark. So I'd kind of hit my peak results, and then I went for a second shed and lost a bit more density, but it wasn't super cosmetically noticeable, in fairness, because I'd still recovered my hair to a decent level. But yeah, I went for a second shed, and then after the second shed, it just got even better again. And then that kind of takes me to where I am now. Added in a few extra treatments along the way that I think have given it a bit of a boost. But yeah, just kind of cracked on and don't really think about it too much these days. Obviously, I make content as well, so I have to kind of talk about it quite frequently. But in terms of worrying about my hair, I don't really worry about it anymore, and I'm pretty happy with the way it is. So that's the rundown.
Yeah, that was a really comprehensive rundown. Like you kind of just demolished some of my questions, coming up.
Sorry.
No, that's great.
More detail though.
That's great. It was really fluid though. Like you were, you had, I didn't want to disrupt you or anything, but it was really, really, a fluid account of what you were dealing with. But I guess it really goes to speak on how early intervention is like the best thing you can do with most conditions, but especially in this context of hair loss, because a lot of people would wait, especially, people in our age group, right? Us young guys, they'll wait until things really get bad, like, oh, I'm a Norwood too, but yeah, it's not so bad. And then they, and there's also no telling how fast the hair loss can progress, but they'll end up waiting, I don't know, maybe like 2 more years, and then they're at a Norwood 4. And I've seen this on Trestless, asking if it's too late to get started, which, I don't know. What's your perspective on that, right? Is it ever too late to get started on a treatment in terms of, like your hair loss?
I don't think it's too late. I mean, obviously, as you say, it depends how severe the person's genetics are and how sensitive they are to androgens, and how predisposed they are to go bald. Because if you're a guy that is balding rapidly and you leave it 2 years, you could be in a much worse position than someone who isn't as sensitive. The hair follicles are going to last a bit longer. But from when you look on all these forums and everything, you can still see some guys, even when they're really far gone and they start treatment, they can still get back a ton of ground, because people do respond really well to the treatment, and it's always hard to tell how well someone is going to respond to it. But I'd always say, like, it's worth giving it a go, because you never know how well you're going to respond.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I would even say if someone's a Norwood 7, right? Even though that's a bit extreme, I still think it's just the very act of trying, to address the issue is, it's noble, right? And
100%. You see, I look at my dad. I look at my dad now, because my dad's fully bald. He's I'd say around a Norwood 6. But when I like, when I'm with him, if I see his scalp, he still has hair. Like, they're just really, really, really miniaturized on the top of his head. And I always think, like, if he hopped on, dutasteride or finasteride right now, Just as a science experiment, it'd be quite interesting to see.
Have you ever tried to talk about the hair loss topic with your dad?
Yeah, I made some videos with him actually on my Instagram and TikTok. Lose your hair.
Similar age to you, Tom. I was probably between 18 onwards. Yeah, just slowly started thinning from that point.
What were like the first sort of signs that you started to notice when you were losing it?
I started to get an island in the middle.
Yeah.
I used to play football with my friends, and obviously they'd then start calling me Bobby Charlton or people like that. If you remember Bobby Charlton, always had a comb overhead.
I've got a full length one for YouTube as well that I need to edit. But yeah, no, I had a full chat with him about it, and he said because he was pretty much losing his hair at the same timeline as me. He was, early 20s, and I said to him, but if there was treatments available at that sort of time, because I think he was losing it probably right around the time finasteride was released for benign prostatic hyperplasia. So obviously it wouldn't be used for hair loss at that time. But I said, if it was around at that time, would you have used it? And he was like, yeah, 100%, 100%. I would have given it a go. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see for sure.
Do you have any like close friends that have also been dealing with hair loss, and have you tried to get them to use finasteride or dutasteride?
I have, mate. I have. I've got some friends that still won't take it, even with all the videos that I make and everything like that. And it's just like, even still now, some of them will say like, I'll take it further down the line. I'll if I really need it.
That's the mistake right there. That kind of thinking.
It is, and I think that's where I'm kind of lucky in a way, because my personality is very I don't wait around. I'm very like OCD with getting stuff done. So I was once I sort of made the decision I was going to do something about my hair loss, I was like watching videos 24/7 to figure out what's the best course of action for it. But I think it's a very male thing not to do that. I think it's a very man outlook to just let it be for a while and then deal with it when it's more of a problem. But then when it comes to hair loss, it's that's not a good idea, because it's not like something that you can, once it's gone, it's pretty much gone for the most part. I seen in, I can't remember which study it was. I think they said once it's miniaturized past 50% of its original density or health, it's pretty much very difficult to get it back to full health, I think.
Yeah, I've also heard that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I heard that from the hair loss talk show. Those two Australian doctors, if I recall
Yeah,
correctly.
they're good. I like those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and the other thing is as well, as you say, with friends, they're still, some of them are really too scared to take it because of the talk of side effects. Like, and I always say, like, I make the videos that I make on primarily short form. I'm trying to expand the YouTube a little bit, but I always preface everything that I say with, yes, side effects can happen. I think some of the side effects that people talk about aren't potentially true, some of them, but side effects can definitely happen. And that being said, I think they are so blown out of proportion these days. It's insane. And I think in the UK in particular, there's a real fear around it. And even recently, there's been news articles talking about it, which are just, they don't go into any scientific detail, and people see this, and that you'll see it on a broadcasting channel that is very well trusted, and they believe it, because, to be honest, if I saw something on a trusted broadcasting channel, I'd believe it, if I didn't know a great deal on the topic. But yeah, people are really afraid. They're really afraid to start it because of these side effects, and I think you should always be cautious, because it is a prescription medication at the end of the day. But I don't know. What do you think? I think they're massively blown out of proportion these days.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with you on that. Like in the United States, we've seen similar things as well on
Yeah.
ABC News. They're talking about this new drug designed for prostates has a lot
New
of side
drug.
effects. Yeah, and a
It's been there
a
for
lot
30
of
years.
yeah, but it's a new drug, but it's been around for a while. I think it has to do with the rise of telemedicine companies and how they've made it very accessible. So I guess new to public consumption, I guess for the most part, or novel, I guess in the grand scheme of things for hair loss. But yeah, like
That's true.
there's a lot of just sensationalism regarding its side effects. Like if you look at the literature, you have a ton of literature showing its safety profile, right?
Vast.
And its efficacy. But then at the same time, they're like, oh yeah, but you do run the risk of having permanent side effects for the rest of your life. That's how the broadcasters present it. Even some doctors, as well, whenever they come to speak about it. Yeah.
100%, and that baffles me. That genuinely baffles me when you hear doctors talking about a condition that is not medically recognized. It's literally not, like, I don't want to cause a stir, but some of these conditions
You already have talking about the topic.
but it's not. It's not. It's as a doctor, like, how can you? I don't want to go into too much detail with it, but it's not. Is it? It's not a record. It's not recognized in medicine.
No, you're
Which-
completely correct. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so my perspective on this is that first you always have to look at the literature, the research, right? Because you have doctors who are also, they're purely in research. They're doing clinical trials 24/7, so their sensibilities on the topic, it's very amplified and specific to a specific domain. Your typical GP, like, all they're really going to do is look at the side effects that's listed on the bottle, and maybe some anecdotal reports and maybe some claims from their own clinical practice. But outside of that, they're not going to look at the literature, and maybe they just, to be fair, they probably don't have enough time to look at the literature, right? They, in the United States, a lot of doctors have to pay off some debt first before they can, really be free to live their lives in terms of their, educational debt. But
absolutely.
when it comes to, I don't know, like just seeing those doctors come on TV, I'm a bit skeptical about some of them because they've read the literature, they understand the statistics on the matter, yet they're like, yeah, but you run the risk of having these issues for the rest of your life if you get it. And it's like, wait, so you've read the literature. You're not like just like a passive, reader. You understand the statistics, yet you're walking away, with full conviction that something like post-Finasteride syndrome, the boogeyman, the word post-Finasteride syndrome exists, right? And then I check their oh man, I had an experience with this one doctor on Reddit. His name is Dr. I guess I'll just say it, Dr. Will Powers.
Okay.
This guy, he DM'd me. Actually, on the post, he called me a jackass because all I was doing was showing statistics on the matter. Like, hey, post-Finasteride syndrome isn't too much of an issue. It doesn't seem to be, really thought out in the literature. And, for the most part, I think they should do better studies if they do want to prove it. And then he's like, oh, you're a jackass. You don't know what you're talking about. Listen, I'm a doctor. And then, I'm like, dude, I'm saying with all due respect, listen, just, read the studies that I have posted and let's have a productive conversation. And then he just responds being an asshole. But what really disturbs me is that some of these doctors themselves, they want to push their own quack treatment. So this guy, he's like, PFS exists and you're an asshole. And PFS exists because of you're messing with DHT. And then he says, yeah, but I've never noticed PFS with dutasteride. Wait, so you're telling me PFS exists because you're messing with your DHT levels, but it doesn't happen with dutasteride. Can you tell me why? Well, I've noticed this, so I'm right. And then I do more research on him. I don't want to rant too much about the guy, but he has been through quite the controversies on different topics.
This is the thing. People like you and me, we don't have the letters D and R full stop before our name. And so ultimately, when people see someone that, I'm not trying to shit on people that are doctors at all. Doctors have worked very hard to get that title, but essentially, if someone does have that title, they have more authority than someone who, doesn't have it and just does all the research online. Because as I say, it's all out there for free. You can literally just Google it. But the general population will take the word of a doctor over someone who makes content and does a lot of research on it. And that's kind of like an unavoidable thing. I don't know if you found that as well.
Most definitely, right? I'm not a doctor, and I think in most cases you should listen to doctors, but
100%.
I think it's a French word. Doctors have the noblesse oblige, or the noble oblige, right? Noblesse oblige, the noble obligation to not confabulate things, actually look at the literature and give advice that's, up to date, scientifically up to date, rather than just, enhancing their patients' fears about a particular medical intervention. That's not helpful at all. And, from what we know about the nocebo effect, that's just, that's irresponsible when you feed into that.
It is, and they shouldn't have opinions either. Because that's if a study came out tomorrow that proved that finasteride causes depression, I'm going to be putting out a video on this Sunday, I think, breaking down why I believe, basically the science behind it. But if a study came out tomorrow, like proving that it did cause depression, I'd make a video on it and I'd say, okay, this is what the studies show. This is proven, because that is ultimately what medicine is. You're supposed to be unbiased. You're supposed to just present the facts from what has been proven in the data. You shouldn't be attaching your own opinions to it. And fairness, Sam will be a bit biased because I do take it and you take it as well.
Yeah, I hear you on that. But like a thing that you said, you shouldn't be biased. I think you should be biased towards the unless you can point out a gap in the literature, right? You should be biased towards the overwhelming, the side that has the most overwhelming evidence. Because I've seen this in many debates and online discussions where someone's like, somewhere along the lines of this, rhetoric. Yeah, like I understand you have all these studies and everything, you have all this proof, but like you're so biased. Why aren't you listening to these people's complaints on these forums? And it's like, if I were to listen to, maybe there's a subreddit or forum out there that talks about, I don't know, like breathing syndrome, right? Like every time I breathe oxygen, I get a headache or something like that. Like, am I going to just take them seriously because they're complaining about it on the internet, or there's a perceived, substantial amount of people that are complaining in a specific domain? Am I just going to take them seriously? Sure, I mean, I'll hear them out, but I don't think just because you have people who are complaining about something, it necessarily equates to there being an actual problem. You of course, you have to investigate it, but it's kind of a weird line of thinking that, yeah, I mean, I don't think these people are making it up, but at the same time, I don't think you're valid just because you're complaining about something, unless you can demonstrate, those complaints, using some, line of logic.
Absolutely. And you're right in the fact that people who are going through these side effects, whatever side effect it may be, they deserve to be heard 100%. And I think it goes down to, if somebody had a headache and, they took a paracetamol or I think is it Tylenol in America?
Acetaminophen, Tylenol in America, yeah.
Okay, but if they took, a one of them for it to get rid of the headache, how likely are they to go onto Reddit and make a post saying, "Oh my word, guys! Like I just took this pill and it took away my headache." However, if they took the pill and I don't know, it made them throw up for 10 days and they got erectile dysfunction and they got depressed, how likely are they to go onto Reddit and warn people about it? Probably, I don't know, like 50 times more likely, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
Is absolutely fair enough. Like it's a human nature to want to warn people about something that has caused you harm and discomfort. But there's also the overwhelming majority of people who can take it safely without any side effects and just crack on with their lives. Like, not everyone is going to be making videos like you and me talking about how our own experiences with it positively. And there's going to be millions of people who just take it, maintain their hair, and crack on with life. And that the minority of people who do get the side effects are going to be more outspoken about it, and then that just kind of creates a snowball effect in terms of creating fear around it, I think.
Most definitely. And I think another, point that people have to contend with is, especially when it comes to the whole depressive sort of, depression side effect of finasteride, that, what everyone's debating about.
Indeed.
With hair loss, look, like, you're already in a population of people that have higher rates of OCD, body dysmorphia disorder, just all these sort of mood issues, primarily because they're dealing with hair loss. And it's I think that's something that people have to admit to themselves first before we equate some sort of complex neurological interaction between DHT and 5-alpha reductase in the brain and allopregnanolone and just all this sort of nonsense. I think we have to contend with that. Okay, you took this medication because, let's be honest, you were dealing with your cosmetic features, right? Just changing, and some people it's changed very rapidly. Maybe they had a full head of hair in 1 year, and then the next they're almost bald. That does a lot on your mental health.
100%, Kyle. You've hit the nail on the head, because when I was losing my hair, I would say I was borderline depressed, genuinely. Like, as a young man that cares about looking a certain way, and you've looked that way for all of your life, and then suddenly, you're losing it. I was pretty down about it, and I would say I was pretty close to being depressed about the situation. And fortunately, I was able to reverse it, and I feel very, very happy now. But as you say, I think it's something that is massively overlooked. And also, when you go into these arguments about allopregnanolone and finasteride blocking it, like, all this, okay, fair enough, there might need to be more studies done on it, but
Yeah.
all these people that argue about it at the moment, the studies are done on rats, and at the end of the day, I'm not a rat. Are you a rat? Like, no. And like, they're similar in biology in certain ways, but we're a human, and that's a rat. There's a massive difference in that.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. And some of those post-finasteride syndrome studies, they're weird. They don't have baseline recording. They're like very, very retrospective. Sometimes they don't even have a good control group, which makes things kind of questionable. There was this one paper, if I can recall correctly, it has to do with cerebral spinal fluid. And they were, the researchers said that when we looked at the 5-alpha reductase gene, the gene that controls type 2 5-alpha reductase, they noticed, there were epigenetic changes that occurred, different patterns in methylation, which to them states that that's finasteride. Finasteride did that. But then it's like, well, first off, you went to like a form to find people that have post-finasteride syndrome. You got them from there. But then the control group, you didn't find men who are using finasteride who don't claim to have post-finasteride syndrome. You didn't get their cerebral spinal fluid, because if you did and you made the comparison between, both groups, and if you found that there was a statistically significant difference in the, methylation patterns, then maybe you would have a case. But they didn't do that. And the excuse always is, well, who's going to fund these studies? I mean, maybe the organization that's carrying it out, right? You have enough money to like find these people on forums and, bring them in and do, some really complicated stuff, like, drawing their cerebral spinal fluid and making further, assessments why not, I don't think it's that much of a burden to find men who are actively taking finasteride and, just, kind of get them into your study and assess their cerebrospinal fluid and see their methylation markers on that particular gene that controls the type 2 5-alpha reductase enzyme. It's like they don't go the extra, I don't even want to say the extra mile, but they don't make the full effort to actually prove that PFS exists, which to me, it's kind of suspicious why they're not doing that.
Exactly. Like if you did that study, that type of study as you just described, if you did that in university, like you wouldn't get a very good mark for it.
Oh yeah.
It's not a good study. But no, it's what if you were to break it down, obviously neither of us are doctors, but if you were to give your thoughts on what post-finasteride syndrome is, what would you say it is? And this is not to ruffle any feathers at all, because I've got my theory, and it is just a theory at the end of the day, because I'm just a guy who makes videos on the internet and does research late at night. But what's your theory on it?
Yeah, I actually have a write-up for it. Give me 1 second. I was working on this.
While you get yours up, I'll give my idea on what I think it could be, because I don't disregard it at all.
Oh yeah.
Some of the things I think could maybe create those type of symptoms would be if there's a guy who's starting it, they're starting treatment finasteride or dutasteride, and they already have hypergonadal symptoms. Perhaps they have really low testosterone, and obviously DHT is much more potent than testosterone. Like that's unarguable. And then suddenly, so because their testosterone is so low, and again, I'm just talking in theory here, guys, but because it's so low, potentially they might be relying on that potency of DHT so much just to maintain male functions. And then suddenly when it does drop, when you start taking finasteride or dutasteride, then suddenly these symptoms could come about. Now, the bit that I can't get my head around is why it would stick around. And one of the things I could think of is potentially if they've been on it for a long time, maybe, I don't know, 10 plus years. And maybe they started it when they were 25 and stopped it when they were 35, and potentially in that time the whole HPTA could not shut down, but slow down, just with age, and then potentially those symptoms come about because that is something that just happens with age. But in terms of why it would stick around, like things like erectile dysfunction. I'm not going to say depression because there is no scientific evidence of it. But when it comes to things like erectile dysfunction and things like that, that's the only bit that I can't get my head around. If someone took it for, I don't know, a week or a couple months, why that would stick around. But yeah, that's my only theory on what could potentially create those symptoms. As I say, just from a guy who makes videos online.
Yeah, we're all just video content creators, right? At the end of the day, but like I believe when people say they have side effects, right? I think that's a real thing. Getting side effects.
Yeah.
It's definitely a possibility, right? When you're shifting your hormonal profile to some extent, you're going to have issues there. There's actually a study by Tong Chen et al. From 2020, and this study focused on sexual dysfunction in adult men, and I think they had markers. They looked at ejaculatory dysfunction, which includes premature ejaculation, delayed ejaculation, and erectile dysfunction. And what they found out when they compared men with those issues to a control group that didn't have those issues, when they looked at their hormonal profile, particularly their testosterone to estradiol ratios, they found that people that had erectile dysfunction, they had higher estradiol values than people who, didn't have the issue, right? So it seems as if when it comes to ED, it has to do with having higher estrogens, right? And then conversely, people with delayed ejaculation had significantly lower levels of estradiol than, the control did, right? So sometimes people think, oh, I'm having side effects due to high estrogens, right? When in reality, it could be the case that your estradiol level is a bit too low. And there are some studies where when they supplement men with estrogens, that they regain their libido, right? Their sexual dysfunction, particularly in regards to delayed ejaculation, for example, that goes away. But also at the same time, when it comes to something like premature ejaculation, that's been correlated with higher levels of testosterone. And that study that I'm talking about, finds that to be the case. So for me, that kind of shows that there isn't a direct importance of DHT such that it's DHT that is responsible for, keeping these factors, right? It's more so that maybe it shows an indirect importance of DHT, which that can be debated, but it shows that once you remove DHT, your body has to compensate. It has to kind of balance the hormonal profile. And in some people who are, hypogonadal, or even people who are at the higher end of the testosterone reference range, I think those two groups of people are at risk of having, major fluctuations, right? If that's where you are. So I think when it comes to side effects, that's where mostly the side effects are, your androgen to estrogen ratios. But when it comes to like prolonged side effects, even after discontinuation, there are two things, right? After the literal discontinuation, meaning, I had side effects and I stopped using the drug the next day, but I'm still having side effects. Well, you have to slow your roll there a bit because the drug is still in your system, right? That's I've seen people, argue that's post-finasteride syndrome, and I'm like, I don't even think the post-finasteride syndrome people would agree with that, because from my understanding, PFS is even when the drug has left your system, it has had, you still suffer with these sort of side effects. And I have this, sort of working theory here. And it's going to be a long video in the future, but it involves the ability of proprioception, right? When it's actually one of our senses that we're aware of our like body parts, our limbs in space. Like where your pinky toe is, right? Like you can, if you made the effort, you can probably sense where it is right now, or where your maybe you can think of a spot on your back, or you can think of like where your finger is, or whatever. You can sense where your limbs are, or where you are in space. And I think because of that, right? If you're concerned about a particular body part, we all know what that is. And if you're having a nocebo effect, or if you're having an actual side effect, but after the side effect, you're still conditioned, right? Due to your anxieties, you're still conditioned to being concerned about that particular body part. That can stay with you for a while, right? If I were to sit here and just tell people, you're now breathing manually, like at this moment, you're going to breathe manually, you have to, and now you're blinking manually too. Right, if I were to say that,
No, I'm thinking about it.
yeah. Like there are probably going to be people that are thinking about it, and now you have to swallow too. You have to gulp, right? So these are like conditioning tactics that can be used to kind of show that, hey, your mind is a strong thing. People seem to underestimate this thing, right? Like, there's no way I'm having a nocebo effect. I'm not crazy. That's not the implication. This is a real like thing that anyone is susceptible to, right? When you hear something, or understanding of language, and if that something that you're hearing is interpreted as a threat and you get anxieties from it, that can, that has physiological effects, right? Your brain makes an assessment. It goes to the hypothalamus, and then that stimulates the pituitary gland, and then that releases ACTH. I think that's the hormone, and that goes to your adrenal glands and it releases cortisol. And that cortisol, right, it has physiological implications. Your blood pressure raises. You become concerned about things, and even that stress itself, if it goes on for a prolonged period of time, you can start to see things where people complain, I took finasteride and I stopped, and my face is bloated, my facial features have changed. Well, yeah, high cortisol levels are going to do that. You're going to have a puffy face. You're going to have these issues, right? There are more explanations against the existence of post-finasteride syndrome than there are substantiations for post-finasteride syndrome in the literature. So when I look at all these things, I'm not saying that side effects don't exist. I think that's very disingenuous that there are people for finasteride who say that, but also at the same time, there are people who try to portray people that advocate for 5-alpha reductase inhibitors and their use. They try to portray that they all think that they believe side effects don't exist. That's just a cheap way of trying to make a point. The reality is side effects do exist, but there's no substantiation that there are prolonged side effects after discontinuation. And I think, by all means, if that's proven, I'll make a video about it. I'll update, my beliefs are, but I have to look at that sort of study to see if that's the case, right? To see the controls and, the methodology of the study. Because if it's just like, we polled some guys on a forum about post-finasteride syndrome, and we found out that, it exists. Now that's a weird way of carrying out a study. But there are people that will cite that saying, look, that's evidence. But it's not like proof. So that's my take on it.
No, I think that's a really good breakdown, to be fair, mate. And I think I agree. Like, I'm all for studies that would actually go into more detail on it and, do a real in-depth breakdown of what is going on. And maybe they would find something, maybe not. But again, as you say, I think side effects seems to be like this blanket term, and it might not necessarily be. It can still be a side effect, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a physiological side effect. I think maybe the side effect could be mental, like you say, and that's kind of like it's differentiating between that, isn't it? And I also think there's this like clear-cut idea online in forums on social media that people either get side effects or they don't get side effects, and I think it's much more of a scale, a spectrum. Like, some people will get really severe side effects, as you say, that their chemistry, their body, their endocrine system everyone's is different. Like, some people are going to react worse to it, and they might have severe erectile dysfunction if they're really unlucky. But some people might just like get a bit. They might be a bit less hard. They might get a bit less of a strong erection, and I don't think it's as clear cut as you get severe side effects or you don't get severe side effects. And I've seen it in friends. I'm not going to like name names or anything, but I've got friends and they got side effects. They started taking finasteride and they got it. But with these people, I've seen them keep a level head, and they haven't freaked out, and they've gone, okay, let's assess the situation. Okay, I am having side effects. Do I want to stop treatment and just, let my hair go? Because that is always an option. There's always an option. But these people have kept a level head, and they've gone, okay, well, maybe if I try lowering the dose, maybe I take it a few times a week, or half the milligrams that I'm taking. I might take 0.5 milligrams or even 0.25 milligrams, a quarter of the standard dose. And or topical. They might take topical finasteride, which I know still goes systemic to a certain extent, but they've actually decided to do that instead of just stopping it and giving up and saying it's caused all these things and it's bad. Just blanket term bad with this treatment. And I think them doing that and keeping a level head, so these people that I know, they've been on it for quite a few years now. because they didn't stop. They just tweaked their routine a little bit, and they've managed to keep a full head of hair because of that. So as I say, I don't think it's a yes or no. You get side effects or don't get side effects. It's like very much a spectrum, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely, tend to agree with you on that. And I think the issue that some people run into is, when they get side effects, they go to these forums, and again, when you start reading about people saying, "Oh, my dick fell off and it rolled into like the garbage disposal," that's going to like freak you out. You're going to think the worst thing. But people like to overestimate, I guess, how resilient they are to suggestion. Right? With I'm sure again, I got people with the whole manual breathing thing. Maybe I got some people in the audience with that, but it's something that goes under your radar. And the more you read of those horror stories, it kind of it can accumulate and really change your perception on things. But one thing that kind of, I don't know, just makes me look at post-finasteride syndrome with the side eye is the inventions of side effects, right? That have nothing to do with the drug's mechanism. I got a comment one time. Someone's like, "Dude, you're not telling the truth. Make a video about how post-finasteride syndrome can make you deaf, or how finasteride makes you lose your eyesight." I'm just like, dude, what else do I tell you? But no, it doesn't, right? Like, do I really have to make a 40-hour video about how that isn't the case, right? Because if you're making the claims of these side effects, which really maybe you're dealing with something else, so you should probably go get that checked out. I think it's just like a convenient excuse to push anything and everything that you're negatively dealing with, or that's negatively impacting your life, onto that particular drug, when in reality it would be more beneficial if you were to go get checked, because again, you could be dealing with something else that's more serious. But I guess it's that's too much of a hurdle for some people to make, so they'll invent side effects. There's this one person that I talked to recently. Maybe they're on the server, I'm not sure. But they said they got post-finasteride syndrome, and I heard them out. But then they said because of PFS, topical minoxidil will make anyone sensitive, and you'll get pale, stool or shit. I don't know. And then they linked a rat study where the rat was given the human equivalent of like 3 grams. And if you're waking up every morning and taking 3 grams of finasteride, I'll believe anything you tell me, right? Because that's a ridiculous amount that, maybe that's true, but I don't know why you're doing that. And I don't know why you're a rat all of a sudden, too. And then they were like, "Oh, now I'm sensitive to topical minoxidil. It gives me erectile dysfunction, and it makes my..." They told me that it caused their penis to rotate 365 degrees, and I'm just like, okay, so I guess, isn't that, I don't know, like, how would you know that happened, right? It to me, I think that's the biggest issue there. The hysteria behind PFS. And when you start getting into these, these online forums that look like they haven't updated their interface since like 2002, that's when you find like some really weird social pathologies there, where people just dwell on the worst possibilities ever, and they start to increase the anxieties of one another by saying how, "Oh, it's over, there's nothing you can do about it." I've even seen things on I think it's the Propecia Help forums or some other forum where people are like taking hardcore amphetamines, not sorry, illegal ones, by the way, not legal ones, illegal ones, and they're claiming that it's curing their PFS. So if you're at that point, I don't know, just get off the forums.
That's great. People post crazy things on the internet, and it's not just people claiming about the side effects. Some people go on and claim crazy things, like positive things about finasteride, which are untrue. I've seen that as well. Like, some people will post the transformation and say it's had all these crazy things.
Yeah,
happen to
finasteride
it.
gym gains, guys. You got to believe it.
People are crazy. People are great. But as we say, anyone that is watching this and is offended at all by what we're saying, it's not what we're trying to do here. Like, you know, me and Kyle are literally just talking on the facts. We're not trying to upset anybody. And if you are having side effects, like, from the bottom of my heart, I do feel for you. Like, whatever is the cause of it, you're still going through side effects. So I'm sorry that you are going through that, and it's not discrediting that whatsoever. No,
Yeah, most definitely. Like when somebody says, "Oh, you have a possible nocebo effect," that's not saying you're wrong. Shut up. You're not having an issue. Get out of here. No, that's a real thing. Yes, it's a real thing, and people suffer from it. If you're chronically, stressed out, that will have a physiological impact on your life. You're going to have high blood pressure. Your face is going to possibly bloat due to the high cortisol levels. And if this goes on long term, it can impact your longevity. This is a real thing. So,
and I suppose that means that a nocebo is a side effect in itself. Really?
Yeah. No, honestly, I guess if you can think about it that way, yeah, it's a sort of social, or sorry, what is it? I forgot the term.
Psychosocial?
There we go. Psychosomatic, psychosocial, somatic, psychosomatic, psychosocial. Those two, both of them. There's a word that connects them both. I forgot what it was, but that word, it's an issue. Yeah, that's a real thing, and I think that kind of gets lost, in the conversation, whether or not, a nocebo effect is real, because many people, to be fair, on the pro-finasteride side of things, when they say, "Oh, you're having a nocebo effect," I think they have the underlying implication that you're not dealing with anything real. It's just it's a fake thing. Like, it's just a dismissive way of addressing somebody's concerns, and that doesn't help either. So there's also some I guess toxic aspects of the pro 5-alpha reductase inhibitor crowd. Man, that sounds like so cringe to say out loud, but it's whatever. That's the space we're in, right? But that's
isn't that crazy that just all of this is over a medicine? I've never seen any other medicine like it. Perhaps something like a Ozempic, like a
GLP-1. Definitely GLP-1s. I think actually the debate there is way more fierce than what's going on here in hair loss land, because that's there's a huge debate going on there. I personally think that GLP-1s are safe and beneficial if you just look at how horrible obesity is in certain countries, United States particularly, and how it just has a whole bunch of just horrible consequences like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, stroke, even low test, libido issues, and now you have to take a weekly injection, and then you lose weight. I mean, I would love if that was for hair loss. You just put something on your head once a week, and then your hair grows back 100%. That's amazing. That, to me, someone out there is so pedantic, they'll say that's not a cure because you have to keep using it. I'll take what I can get. That's a pretty effective tool to address a concern.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I don't know what to say about PFS other than that, because
we've covered a lot there. In fairness, I think we, as I said, we've been very unbiased as well, particularly considering we are people that use it and use it, positively, and have had positive influences from it. But we're not shutting down the fact that people do have negative experiences with it, for sure.
Quick question though, have you had side effects? And if so, how did you deal with it? So
the really interesting, to be honest, because obviously when I'm making these videos, because I literally post every single day on TikTok and Instagram, and I aim to post once a week on YouTube, and I was getting a lot of requests to not to take, but people were asking me about dutasteride, and so I didn't want to provide information on it without trying it for myself. And I'd had the majority of my results from just finasteride alone, so I thought I'll take dutasteride once a week. So I've taken it once a week alongside finasteride the other 6 days of the week, because that is something a lot of people are asking me about. They're like, will I supercharge my results if I take both, or if I take, dutasteride just once or twice a week? So I thought, okay, I looked at the research and the chances of anything bad happening from it, and it was pretty low. So I was like, okay, I'll run a little experiment. So I've been taking that regime for the past, I think it's 7 months now, or maybe even longer. Can't remember the exact date. It was last summer I started. But yeah, finasteride 6 days a week, dutasteride once, and the whole time that I was on finasteride, I got no side effects whatsoever. Dutasteride, I noticed a few things change. So when I didn't get anything for around, I think it was about the 5 month mark. When the 5 month mark hit, I had a little bit of nipple sensitivity, and I'm someone that has a little bit of pre-existing gyno from puberty.
Yeah.
So I'm monitoring that, in fairness, but it's gone away now in the past, month or so. So that is one thing that I noticed. It wasn't anything too crazy. And the other things that I have noticed was actually in the time that I started taking dutasteride, my lower back hair, so sort of right at the bottom of your back, you sort of get some hairs down there normally. And I had those pretty much since puberty. I'm 25 now, and they stopped growing completely. They don't exist anymore, which that is one interesting finding. Like, I did not expect that to happen. It's certainly not something I'd consider a bad side effect. If anything, it saves me having to shave it. The only other thing I could sort of correlate to it is my skin on my face has been a bit clearer. I'd say I have less breakouts. I don't know whether that's to do with sebum production from inhibiting a little bit more DHT. Obviously, I'm only taking it once a week, so I'm not going to be getting the maximal suppression from dutasteride. But that's the only other thing I noticed, really. And in the space of time where I was taking the dutasteride just once a week, I did actually notice some new hairs popping up on my hairline, which I really did not expect. Now, I'd say I can't remember the exact time frame, but somewhere within the first year, I also added in tretinoin on my hairline alongside minoxidil. So that could potentially have an effect, but that was quite a while ago. So I would actually correlate some of that hairline specific regrowth to dutasteride just once a week. Yeah, sorry, I've gone off on a massive tangent there again. But yeah,
No, you're good, bro.
they're the only side effects that I've noticed. The only other one that I could possibly mention is my testosterone levels. I got them checked. I just made a video on this actually, but I got them checked a few weeks ago. And definitely want to preface this by saying my life has changed a lot in the time, because I took my my hormone levels before starting dutasteride and then 6 months afterwards. And when I took the test the first time before starting, I was at 660 nanograms per deciliter. And as I say, a lot of things changed in my life. I do this full time now, content creation. So I've been able to kind of optimize things like my sleep. My sleep works better for me now, my sleep schedule. I was running like competitively sort of 50, and the training for that was around 50 to 60 miles a week, which I've been doing for about 7 years, and I stopped that in that time as well. So the amount of miles
That's
that I was
a lot.
running a week, it's a lot. Yeah. So I think that definitely had an impact on my testosterone for sure. But yeah, now I sort of do 15 to 20 maximum. And I've been trying to bulk and go to the gym a bit more. So that's I've been in a calorie surplus during that whole 6 months. So they're definitely things that I think have influenced it a lot. However, that being said, my testosterone went up to 1,211 nanograms per deciliter
Oh, wow.
in the test. Yeah, so pretty high. So that's the only other thing I could potentially mention when in the realm of side effects, if you could even call it that. But yeah, they're the key findings, I'd say, mate.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really comprehensive account. Again, like you're good at doing that. You just demolish the questions that I have coming up, my upcoming questions. Yeah. I guess on that. So what is your current, I guess, protocol? If you are to elaborate on that a bit more.
Yeah.
Have you ever like tried something like oral minoxidil? Because there are some people who are, concerned about that, and I think for a good reason. But I think there's also a way of safely using it as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that and again, I think we need more research on that for sure. I haven't tried oral minoxidil myself because, do you know what? Honestly, mainly because I only use minoxidil topically on my hairline, and I've only done that since the beginning. And I wouldn't want to risk going through another big shedding phase because obviously I make videos on a daily basis now, and
Yeah.
from a vanity perspective, I wouldn't want to go through that again. But no, I haven't tried that. But my overall protocol at the moment is, as I say, it's finasteride 1 milligram 6 days of the week, dutasteride 0.5 milligrams 1 day of the week, and it's not necessary, to be honest. It was just for the experiment, so I could give a personal account and test out this theory that people were curious about. I take topical minoxidil just on my hairline, and that is 10%, not for any particular reason, because it's 10%, 5%. It's not going to make a great deal of difference. But the company that I do a bit of work with, they offer 10% as their main solution. So pretty much just have it because of that. And yeah, I only use that on my hairline once a day. I use it once a day, and I use it alongside tretinoin at 0.25%, and I use that 3 times a week. If I use it more than 3 times a week, I find my skin gets a bit irritated and flaky. So I use that, 3 times a week, just on my hairline and my face, because it makes your skin pretty nice.
Yeah.
Ketoconazole shampoo. I use Nizoral, the Nizoral version, the 2%, once a week. I only use it once a week because I find it kind of makes your hair look a bit shit. It's very dry.
Yeah, it dries it out. Before you
yeah.
continue, did you know they actually have Nizoral has I think it's what is it? It's called their psoriasis shampoo and conditioner that I'm pretty sure you're supposed to use with their ketoconazole.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they
I never knew that.
they don't do a good job at I guess advertising that. But I remember I talked to a representative. They're like, actually, you're supposed to use both of them. I'm like, really?
I never
Why
knew
don't
that.
you just sell them as a bundle? Yeah, it's like this green bottle. If anyone's curious, but because that's supposed to combat the drying effects from the ketoconazole.
I'll look into that, in fairness. But yeah, and then in terms of, I also use so I use the Nizoral one. That's a cheap one. It's generally pretty cheap around the world, I think. So I use that once a week. But then I also use another ketoconazole, which is like a bit of a nicer quality one. And it's only 1%, so I don't think it's going to make dramatic differences. I don't think 2% is even going to make that big of a difference. I always say with ketoconazole, it's probably just worth adding in for the sake of a shampoo, because you're going to wash your hair anyway. But I also use one from Derek, More Plates, More Dates. He does one, so I use that one. The other two, because I wash my hair around 3 times a week, so the other 2 days I just use that one. And what else do I do? I do microneedling still. I did it more frequently. I used to do it once a week at the start of my journey, but I tend to only do it maybe once a fortnight now, and I don't go too deep with it. I go maximum 1 millimeter, because again, I'm making videos every day, so I don't want that redness on my scalp kind of look. But I would say as well, with microneedling, that would be the first thing that I'd drop if if I had to exclude something from a protocol.
Yeah,
I
the
think
microneedling
that's
though.
everything.
Oh yeah, that's everything. I was gonna say,
So,
like, when it comes to microneedling, man, people can be very, overzealous with it,
yeah,
like to the point where their whole scalp is just bloody. Like, what are you
yeah.
doing, man?
I was guilty of that to start with, in fairness, mate, because when I was first starting out the whole hair loss journey, and I still researching, I did that. In fairness, I went pretty deep, and I wouldn't recommend that now, to be fair. But yeah, before I knew more about it, I would go pretty deep and cause some serious damage. But I
Yeah,
haven't had
I've
anything
seen
serious.
people get a lot of damage from it too, like when they use the higher millimeter depths.
Yeah,
Um, just I forget the form it was on. But the dude was like, "Hey guys, is this gonna cause permanent damage?" He's using like 2.5 millimeter depth, and it's
jeez.
like, yeah, that's a bit too much if you're doing that like daily, man. Like
Yeah,
that's
daily. Oh my word.
yeah.
But above, sorry, 1.5 millimeters, I'd be scared of severing the erector pili muscle.
Oh yeah, definitely. I
Like,
think it's just a bit. How do you deal with the pain? When you're doing that, like, come on.
yeah, I don't deal with the pain very well, so I don't think I deal with anything more than a millimeter very well, because it does hurt. It does sting quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's like getting it. If you did it every day, it'd be like getting a tattoo every single day.
Oh, most definitely. So, like, there's no way for your skin to properly heal after such a traumatic, I guess so to speak, traumatic injury. Especially if you're chronically doing that injury over and over again for like a
Yeah.
month, you probably lost those follicles forever at that point.
Yeah.
But I think the whole microneedling craze comes from. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that it increases absorption. I think people mostly focus on the whole, oh, you're injuring an area and there's growth factors that's going to come there. So microneedling on its own can be a growth stimulant, when in reality, it's like, I mean, nah, man, like it's a bit too much.
I'd say it's more just the fact that it makes a hole. It's easier to get
Yeah.
to the follicle.
Yeah.
I think if you're a guy that is just microneedling without using minoxidil, you're not gonna get any gains from that, unfortunately.
So I've seen
Oh,
some of your videos. Um, what are your future plans with like IRL interactions? Because I've seen you like go in real life and question people about certain things. Like, do you ever plan on making a sort of IRL video asking people if they've heard about finasteride or any of the hair loss treatments?
Yeah, that would be quite a good idea, to be fair. Because that is another thing as well. A lot of people don't know about it. A lot of people don't. They're the funnest videos to make by a long mile, for sure. Like going out into the public rather than just being, sat in my room talking to a camera. So that's a good idea, to be fair, Kyle. I might do that. But yeah, in terms of like future plans, I'm not. I kind of just take it day by day. In fairness, and if there's a topic to cover, then I cover it. You get, I think, because I focus a lot on the short form content. You make a video and it does kind of get lost in the algorithm after a while. So you have to keep remaking videos, and you can make it in a different way, but you do have to pretty much say the same thing 30 times in the space of a year. But yeah, most of my content is just, I say it's a mixture of things. So answering people's questions, breaking down a scientific topic, which is my favorite thing to do, in fairness, because that's the most fulfilling. However, it's also the thing that takes the most amount of time and gets the least amount of views
Yeah.
on short form. Whereas I'd say that I'm giving away the secret sauce, but it's
Hey, don't say
what I
too
do.
much. You gotta hold some in reserve.
I don't mind. People can know. In fairness, I'd rather people know how I do what the whole strategy behind the page. I'll make videos that are aimed at going viral. So, like videos that show my journey, because people love that. People love to see from point A to point B, the transformation. And that is kind of what brings people to the page. It kind of,
Exactly, yeah.
makes it makes those viral videos and gets people there. And then I'll make alongside that the more informative videos and actually go into detail on the science. And I think that's what makes people stay, hopefully, on the page and sort of take value from what I'm doing. I sometimes make videos on celebrities, which isn't my favorite thing to do, I'll be completely honest. But again, they get really good views, and it brings
they
people
do.
to the page. They do, and it brings people to the page, which is ultimately a net positive because people can find out information on what I'm talking about. What else do? I do a bit of other stuff. I try and do a bit of fitness content. That's a big passion of mine. I'm trying to expand that a little bit, so I'm not just a guy that talks about hair loss. Although it's kind of a hard one to tackle because everyone wants to do fitness. And then I'll also do some, I'll be honest, like kind of like cringy videos. There's just me, I don't know, doing a routine or showing my hairline or something like that, which again isn't my favorite to do, but they get really good videos. They get really good views and interactions. Like I think there's one the other day. Like I remember I did a video breaking down whether finasteride causes prostate cancer, and I think in total I probably took about 10 hours of research, filming, making the video, editing it, and it did all right. Maybe got like, I don't know, 20,000 views or something. Nothing crazy. And then the other week I did one where I was like blow drying my hair, and I think because I was blow drying it upwards, and you could see the shape of my hairline, and it looked in the I don't actually know what the punctuation symbol is, but the symbol where it's like kind of looks like a widow's peak.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I just don't know the.
And it was like it was literally just some simple text above my hairline as I was blow drying my hair that said like that punctuation mark type hairline. And I think the video probably took about, I don't know, a minute total to make, edit. And that one got like, I don't know, it's probably on like 600,000 or 700,000 views.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, the audience is like, telling you. I've observed the same thing on my channel. It's I could sit there and talk about studies, and then I can just like make a video on a celebrity, and then it like literally a 7-minute video on a celebrity, and it gets like nearly 200,000 views. It's like, wow, okay, well, I mean, I guess I'll return to that later. But I'll in the meantime, I'll make an archive of all the studies I've looked at, and then go where the audience is pushing me.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the important thing. Like, give people what they want, but then also keep them there, keep them, invested in the page by bringing value, sort of thing. And that's something that I think you do really, really well, Kyle. You go into a lot of detail with it, and I learn a lot of stuff from your page as well, for sure. And it does bring a lot of value to the community, for sure. I think that's the main thing. As long as you're making videos that you're proud of, alongside the ones that you have to make, then you're doing a good job.
Oh, I mean, thank you so much. I appreciate the the remarks, the compliments.
No worries.
I guess I'll ask you this: like, are there any upcoming treatments that you're like, enthusiastic about?
Yeah, do you know what? I think the next 10 years looks promising. I think that obviously the big one that everyone's interested in is GT 229, isn't it? It's 229, right? Yeah, I'm not good with numbers.
They always have like a random string of numbers and letters at this point. Like they kind of blur.
Atrocious. The hair loss industry does not come up with catchy names, does it?
Yeah.
Like RU588. I can't remember.
CBO 3001, TDM 5628 something. Just, even PP405. I think that's another one that everyone is like really excited about.
Yeah. The one that sticks in my mind is GT229. That's the one that I'd say, it seems different to other treatments. I think there was a bit of controversy with the company that is producing it a little while back, wasn't there, with the fake reviews or something on was it, they make paralutamide as well, don't they?
Yeah, I think the issue was that, oh man, so Kintor Pharmaceuticals, they hired, because they're based in, I think, Hong Kong, and I think they hired some sort of agency to advertise the cosmeceutical KX826 pyrolutamide. And then the agency, they went to some hair transplant doctor's website, took the before and after photos, and just threw it on, and then Tressus was like, look, which, to be honest, as a biotech pharmaceutical company, you really have to, not have that ever be the case, ever. You have in-house pictures that you could have given them, but yeah, probably just a huge miscommunication between various teams. Yeah, and like that, I'm not in that sort of pharma industry. I'm a software engineer. I do DevOps, but I'll be honest. Like when you're in a huge corporation or any group for that matter, there's always going to be some miscommunication, and if you can't, it's just some things happen, and then everyone's pointing fingers, and you're like, okay, how did this get through? And really, the oversight can happen on numerous levels, right? Where just some people just just don't really see the issue until the last minute, and that's a
pass down the chain.
exactly, yeah. And I'll say that they did a good job with the Ask Me Anything, or the AMA that they did on Reddit. I don't see that many pharmaceutical companies getting doing an AMA and getting taken to task, so to speak, on their activities, the mistakes they've done. So I think we need more of that, actually.
I rate that. I rate that.
That'd be nice.
And then other things. I guess stem cells looks promising for the future. Again, needs a lot more research before anything is. I've seen a lot of companies just firing it out already, which I'd advise against, to be honest.
I have a question. When you first started losing your hair and you went to a dermatologist or any doctor, did they try to dissuade you from using finasteride or dutasteride? Were they pushing PRP by any chance?
Do you know what? So I went to the NHS initially, and they said it's not that bad yet, so I wouldn't worry about it. Is the main thing that they kind of pushed to me. But they said they were like, if it does get worse, then you could use finasteride and minoxidil. They didn't say avoid it. In fairness, they did kind of stick to the literature, which is cool. It's good to see. But they did say wait for now because you're young and it's not too bad, which isn't ideal. And
wait until it gets worse. I guess prevention isn't. I guess when it comes to aesthetics, prevention isn't really focused on. I mean, to be honest, with a lot of ailments these days, prevention isn't focused on. It's mostly treatment. It looks like with finasteride and dutasteride, these are some pretty promising drugs. There's more research coming out that it has, cardiovascular benefits. It can, it's good for your skin when it comes to DUT, especially. It also has the possibility of decreasing the chances of someone getting prostate cancer. There was it was the ProScar study. It was some sort of study, the prostate cancer prevention trial.
18 years.
Yeah, and it really, it reduced instances of prostate cancer for the groups that used 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. So that's a really promising sort of drug outside of the the hair loss and vanity kind of perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and that's another big misconception as well, isn't it? A lot of people, but because that in that study initially, before it was fully complete, were popping up, being diagnosed with more prostate cancer. I still get questions now, even to this day, in the comments of people being like, "But doesn't it cause prostate cancer?" And I think what people don't understand is, in that study, it essentially kept the prostate to a reasonable size, to the point where it was actually easier to find cancer earlier, which is,
Exactly.
as you say, it's incredible. Like, obviously, it might not prevent it by itself, but being able to find it before it's too late and be able to treat it and still be alive, like that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I think that's what people should understand. That's a good thing if you're able to find it, and that's if it goes undetected, then that's kind of an issue there too. But also, I think the other issue there that some people seem to state is that because your PSA values, your prostate specific antigen, I think that's what the term is. This marker is typically used to kind of elucidate whether or not you're having issues with your prostate, whether you're having benign prostatic hyperplasia, prostatitis, or heavens forbid, prostate cancer, right?
Yeah.
So when you take thin or DUT, that sort of cuts the PSA value in half. So you really should be telling your doctor, hey, I'm on finasteride and dutasteride, so they can do the necessary mathematical calculations to see what your theoretical natural PSA value score is. And that will kind of determine whether or not you have an issue. But also,
that's
if your PSA values... Sorry, what happened?
So I was saying, that's the big thing, isn't it? Actually just telling your doctor, because it's as simple as an equation.
Yeah, true, yeah. But the thing here is if your PSA values as well as higher while you're on Fin and Dute, then you have an issue. Like, you have to go immediately get that addressed. But people... they have this sort of anxiety when they go to the doctor, right? And I can say, as someone myself, I have a what's it called, white coat syndrome, right? Where because when I was young, I had this one doctor, she'd get this ridiculously long needle and just like keep inject like this. When I would get a vaccine or whatever, I would get injected with this, and I would always freak out. And I think I'm not scared of I won't scream, kick, and shout if I get a needle. I mean, maybe if it's a huge one, that'll change. But going to the doctors, it's an issue. It elevates my blood pressure to the point where they'll ask me, "Oh, are you on blood pressure medication?" And it's like, no. Like I've been through this before. Like when I'm at home, it's lower. I have a blood pressure monitor. It's just the setting. I really don't like it. And actually, I had like a concussion issue. This was towards the last week of December. And I went to the emergency room to kind of, get my blood pressure checked and all my other vitals. The first reading they did, it was off the charts. Like, really? But then, it was horrible. It was like 166 over 100, something like that.
Wow.
Because when I got the concussion, my vision was like double and then triple, and I was like, yo, this is kind of freaking me out. I mean, me saying that, somebody might say that's due to dutasteride, and this is the issue with the space. But when I was lying down and they when they hook you up every 30 minutes, the machine just checks your vitals. As you're just like chilling out, the blood pressure went back to normal. It was like 115 over 65, which is like really good. So there's sort of anxiety that people have when they go to the doctor, right? That's something that that has to be kept in mind as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're at that point of the video or the podcast, however people are going to be looking at this. Hey, shout out your platforms, man. Like I have some friends that would send me your TikToks, like, hey, he makes hair loss content, kind of like you. And I'm like, I know, I've seen his content, cool stuff. So like, shout out your content, what platforms you're on, and I'll definitely be leaving that in the description and in the pinned comment.
Legend, thank you. Yeah, it's Instagram is my biggest platform. It's Tom_Gilbanks. That's Tom GILLBANKS. And on TikTok, it is tom.gilbanks, also the same spelling. And YouTube, I think it's just Tom Gilbanks, all one word. I think you can search at Tom Gilbanks on YouTube these days, can't you? When you can search a channel name with the at in front of it. But yeah, they're my pages, guys. If you want to check it out, if you want daily hair loss content, if you're that invested in it, which if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you are.
Yeah, and I'll certainly be leaving the links to that in the comment section in the description. And yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast. And I really appreciate the work you do. And yeah, you're helping a lot of people as well, man. Like, we need more people to kind of talk about these sort of medications and how it's beneficial and it can actually help people get through a pretty stressful time of their lives, dealing with hair loss.
Absolutely, and same to you, mate. 100%. Like, you are absolutely smashing it with the videos. Like, just the level of detail that you go into in the, you really go deep into the science, which is amazing. Like, it provides a lot of help to a lot of people and calms a lot of people down as well when they can actually get. I think just breaking the studies down, like, in studies, people, these scientists use very sciencey words, but you break it down into language that people could understand, and I think a lot of people appreciate that, including myself. So thank you for everything that you do for the hair loss community also.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Anyway, see you later, and thank you guys for watching. Bye, guys.